Breathe deep the gathering gloom. Watch lights fade from every room. Bed set of people look back and lament. Another day's useless energy is spent. Impassioned lovers tangled as one. Lonely man cries for love and has none. A new mother picks up and settles her son. Senior citizens wish they were young. Cold-hearted orb that rules the night removes the colors from our sight. Red is gray and yellow white. But we decide which is right and which is an illusion. Alright, welcome back. You're sitting here with, I'm Big Wang and this is Who Dang. And we're here to have some fun and talk about trips.
Yep, this is the Eclectic Podcast, episode 15. We made it to 15 episodes. Who would have thought? We've found time, although our free time is very short, to hammer out 15 episodes. So thank you for joining us again. It's all possible because of you guys.
Yes, we're glad that you would join us. We've had a lot of fun. We'd probably still do it anyway, even if there were no views aside from our own. But you, the listener, make it worthwhile. So, Josh, what's on your mind today?
Well, today, it's just another beautiful summer day.
Not a cloud in the sky.
Nope. And we happen to be sitting right now up in a wonderful temperate rainforest up here amongst the trees in this this beautiful region that we call the Pacific Northwest. And so I thought maybe to start today we could because we've kind of talked a little bit, we've pointed out maybe some detrimental aspects of the community where we are from. We've pointed out some negative things about where we hail from. So I think it would maybe be a good little activity for us here to set the record straight on a few things and really bring attention to how amazing and fucking awesome the Pacific Northwest is. And how it is, I would have chosen no other place to have been born and raised. Do you think that's a good topic to kick off with?
Yeah, it's so beautiful up here. And yeah, we do talk about some negative aspects of our community, but I'm definitely grateful to have been born and raised in this area. It's one of the only places that you can, especially in Montesano, in areas like that, where you can, take a 5-minute walk from anywhere and be out in the wilderness.
Yeah. And I do appreciate, we'll get into the environmental reasons why it's so awesome up here in a minute, but just as far as Montesano goes, I really like the just kind of sleepy, casual quality that the town has. And although there are some real shitholes in near proximity, and although I wouldn't paint the county as heaven by any stretch of the imagination, I think Monty in particular, it's kind of a hidden little gem from some surrounding areas that aren't very nice. It kind of has maintained, I think, a certain quality that is kind of vintage Americana in a way. I don't know. I want to give it I don't know if you ever watched, like, the Andy Griffith Show. Don Knotts and fucking Little Ron Howard.
Not really.
But, well, they live in Mayberry, but, like, it really reminds me of Montesano. Just kind of just really fucking laid back. Most people, for the most part, mind their business, which is something you won't find in big cities. And there's relatively no crime to speak of. Urban decay hasn't progressed into Monty yet. So, there are a lot of positive aspects, but I'm not trying to. I want to talk about the Pacific Northwest as a region, though, primarily. Maybe we can give the viewer a little fucking shot of what it looks like up here, in case you happen to be from an entirely different region of the country or the world. Can't beat that. Can't beat that.
Just beautiful. And yeah, like, we're not just trying to, like, focus the discussion on Montesano. We just make a lot of references to that because it's what we're familiar with. As far as, like, what you said about there being a couple shitholes around in near proximity, I'm sure most listeners are familiar with the area and know of what we speak.
Yeah,
but
we don't need to go into the actual name dropping, probably, of the place.
I think, like, Elma is nearby, and it's a pretty nice town.
Yeah, it's alright. Could be worse.
But anyway, like, we're trying to talk about just the region on a bigger scale as a whole.
I think in the Pacific Northwest, for starters, it's probably outside of certain like rural populated areas, it's probably one of the cleanest, healthiest, environmentally sound regions, definitely in the country, probably the world. If you want to put in like living standards in with that, I think that the forests here are really unique. I think that all, like, I mean, up here, like in Washington State, you have the beaches that are, I mean, the state's not that far. It takes 6 hours to drive from one end of the state to the other. So you have the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. You have like some of the best natural like forests in the world. You have the mountain ranges. You have like Mount Rainier, which is awesome, and even Mount St. Helens, even though it's kind of a desolate wasteland now. And then on the other side, on Eastern Washington, it's not really my thing. I think I like Western Washington way better.
Yeah.
But there is like a lot of natural beauty in like the like rolling hills and over like towards Pullman and shit.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of the desert, like canyons and shit, or even like the Gorge. That's the best concert venue. It has to be the best concert venue on the planet.
Such a beautiful backdrop.
Yeah, like.
And yeah, like there's so many things we could talk about. Like what's good about the Pacific Northwest. We could talk about the diversity of like climate zones.
Yeah.
Like in Washington alone, you have tropical rainforests. You've got just your average run-of-the-mill forests everywhere.
Yeah.
You've got deserts on the east side of the mountains. Plateaus, plains land.
Yep.
You could talk about wildlife. Got a lot of diverse wildlife.
Yeah, like it's...
And being close to the ocean, like you mentioned, like being able to go digging for clams. And
razor clams, yeah.
Any seafood you buy is fresh off the shore.
Yeah,
just
fresh
like, way
seafood.
better than you can get in other places, quality-wise.
Yeah, fresh seafood, and, we have, lots of deer, but, like, I really love elk. I think elk steaks, like, elk meat's probably my favorite fucking meat, aside from seafood. But yeah, like, razor clams, like, I don't even know, like, I think I researched it before, like, are there razor clams in other areas on the planet? And they have some broke-ass versions of razor clams, I think, on the East Coast. It's nothing like here. Like Washington State, I mean, best razor clams on the planet. Yeah, and probably one of the only places where they're like a well-known treat.
Yeah.
If you've never had razor clams, oh, you're missing out. They are a delight.
One of the things that I kind of think of when we're talking about like small town versus big town type stuff is traffic.
Yeah.
Like, places around here or like rural areas, pretty much anywhere, I suppose, you're more likely to not have to deal with traffic so much. People are not in such a hurry that they'll let you in.
Yeah.
Like if it's a busy time of day or whatever.
Yeah.
You try driving up in the bigger cities and it's just insane
It's hell.
all the time.
It's hell. I get flustered in Seattle traffic, but we can talk about like the good points of Seattle. The bad point is the traffic, but Seattle is probably not even as bad as like you look at like down in Los Angeles and shit down there, or like New York City. Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
Oh god, man. You could fucking. I mean, that's probably why people walk so much in the city. Is because you're gonna get there faster. Like, seems weird.
Yeah, or even on the highways and stuff, which are supposed to be like designed to be efficient. Like have bad traffic buildups
Bumper
every
to
day.
bumper for miles on end.
People won't let you in if you're trying to merge. It's just like totally different mindset. It seems like too up there. Everybody's just so busy. And
Driving
concerned.
becomes like a hostile activity.
Yeah.
It becomes like a survival.
Just like so absorbed with themselves and where they need to be and everything else that they're not, that they, don't take an extra 10 seconds to let somebody into their lane.
Yeah. That's BS. I think that, admittedly, I've only been throughout the western United States. I've been to pretty much all the states in out west, but I haven't been to other parts of the country. But I will say that of the big cities I've been to, Seattle's by far the coolest city. It's like, I think it looks cool for one thing. On the Puget Sound there, you got the Space Needle and Mount Rainier in the background. Like, It's just cool to be up there, and it's like, there's just like I don't know, it's like a breath of fresh air compared to a lot of the other major urban centers in the country, I think. And I think it's so kind of far removed from other urban centers that like we always talk about as being like Seahawks and Mariners fans. We always talk about like the East Coast bias. But I think it's really more of a like everywhere but the Northwest bias, because there's so many unpopulated areas that kind of block like Seattle from, you have like Idaho, the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, Utah, and Oregon kind of like make this boundary around Washington State. So it's like we are kind of like an outpost up here in a way. But, I don't really know where I'm going with that. I'm just trying to describe why I think that like maybe the Pacific Northwest gets overlooked, like, in, like, national media or national attention, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Not enough movies take place up here. Like, it's the perfect, like, this place, there's so much diversity, and, like, you could, like, I don't know, I just think that, like, it's a really cool place that, like, a lot of people are missing out on.
Yeah.
I guess we don't want, like, a hell of people to start coming up here, though, because then it would suck. But if you're a cool person, come up to Washington State.
Yeah.
That's a commercial. We're sponsored by the state of Washington right now. They're our newest sponsor on our podcast. You might even find a Sasquatch.
Yeah, I think it's like, in relation to the rest of the nation, in a lot of the world, like talking about like places like Mexico or India or China where there's tons of people.
Yeah.
Washington in particular, and the surrounding areas, Idaho, Oregon, not so much California. Population is like so much more sparse.
Yeah. Yeah, we're spread out pretty good. And there's the air up here is just, especially up in the woods, up in the forest, up at the lake or whatever. Like,
it's so clean.
Yeah, it's just pure fresh air. Like, I feel like you get like it's something you get like I don't know. There's like a mental edge that you get from like just really clean air, and I think that's like probably something that's overlooked a lot. Like when people are doing health studies of like the occupants of cities, the denizens of areas with real like industrial decay, and just vast populations. Like, look at the air they're breathing, man. It's so filled with other people's fucking germs and like all the viruses and just like pollution in the air. It's just
lots of pollution.
It's a bad mix.
Well, I mean, and we have the best weed up here. Another boon to the area.
Yeah, not that I have ever done that, but I hear it's pretty tight. I hear it's cool. I've never done it, but yeah, from everything I hear, Washington State has the best in the world.
Yeah, I mean, neither of us have ever done it. We've never done weed. I've seen it before.
I've seen it a couple times.
And I mean, it does look like a beautiful plant.
Yeah.
It smells pungent.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we've never done anything like that before.
But if you do,
it's legal up here in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So, take a trip up here.
In more ways than one. Yeah, maybe we could, after having, preached the awesomeness of Washington State and the Pacific Northwest, maybe we could talk about some places we'd like to visit in the world. Maybe how other places, maybe certain ways that they contrast with the Pacific Northwest. Maybe that's something intriguing for us that we want to go experience.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of places I want to see. There's a lot of world out there to see,
Mm-hmm.
Which I think a lot of people forget that.
Yeah, big time.
Getting caught up in the day-to-day hustle and bustle.
There's a lot more
so
world
much
out there
to see. One place that stands out in my mind, I mean, there's so many places to choose from, but I've always wanted to go to India just to like experience the culture over there. It just seems like a really interesting place.
Yeah, me too. India seems like, well, for one thing, I'm really interested in like the Hindu culture and their spirituality and their sacred texts. We've talked about the Bhagavad Gita quite a bit. I'd really like to go over there and kind of maybe tour some of their ashrams or temples, or I'm not really even sure what the correct term is for one of their places of worship, but I'd like to go there, maybe talk to some of their clergy and just, get some insight. I think that, obviously there's a lot of social problems over there, but culturally speaking, I think that their food looks awesome from what I've seen on TV. A lot of their cultural cuisine, it seems like really interesting.
Yeah, it just seems like an awesome place. Definitely a lot different, and I think there would be some culture shock, but I think that would be a good thing.
Yeah.
I'd also like to check out Brazil sometime. Spots down there in the Amazon that I hear are pretty badass.
Yeah. The parts that are still untainted by corporate mining for resources,
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to go up to, where is it? Maybe Rio, where they have that big Christ statue.
Yeah.
I'd like to go pose under that.
I think that is at Rio de Janeiro or whatever.
Yeah, that would be interesting to go to South America.
Yeah.
From what I understand, I think South America was one of the latest areas on the world that were populated by humans. And I don't know how extensive the knowledge is on that, even among mainstream scholars, because I think I looked into it before because I just kind of had a problem with it. Like, how do people get in the middle of the Amazon rainforest from Africa, you know?
Yeah.
Because it means they have to cross, you know, up through the Middle East. We know they went there, up to Europe. They took a left, went to Europe, and then spread out across Asia. Then they got to North America, right, through the Bering Strait.
Yeah.
And it was, like, frozen over or whatever.
Like an ice age or whatever.
And then they wander down through Canada, populate North America, made their way down into Central America and Mexico, and then they kept on pushing right down through South America. Like, that's a fuck of a journey.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think I would have seen the Amazon and probably turned back. I don't know if this is the best place to live.
Yeah, I mean, it probably just by time and like population numbers like that it would take. Seems like it would take a long time to make that journey all the way down. Once they even crossed the Bering Strait, which probably took quite a while, all the way down through the Americas, down through Central America, and then.
And of course, we're talking about generations, you know,
Yeah.
that took this trip. But yeah, I think South America has kind of a, I don't know what the right word is, like a wild, kind of untamed, kind of, I don't know, kind of aspect to it, maybe, at least in my mind.
Yeah.
But yeah, it would be
Well, in like
interesting.
Brazil especially, like the Amazon rainforest, there's some crazy shit in there.
Mm-hmm.
You got like jaguars or whatever the hell is out there.
I think, like, political dangers aside, even more than the Amazon rainforest, I like to visit the Congo jungle in Africa.
Oh yeah, I would definitely like to go to Africa. And Congo seems like it would be a crazy place to go.
Yeah, because if we're talking, like, jungle, I'm sure the Amazon is really cool, and it has its own unique features, ayahuasca shamans, that type of thing.
Yeah.
I think in Africa, I really think gorillas are awesome. They're my favorite animal. I like to go see gorillas, like, in the wild.
Yeah.
Not get too close, but observe them from
Go on
a
a
safe
safari
distance.
and shit.
Yeah, or like climb
See
Kilimanjaro.
lions. Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Fucking nuts would that be? Whoa.
Kind of touched on something there, like briefly. You mentioned the ayahuasca shamans. I would like to, like, that's one of the main draws of like the Amazon to me, is just like, or Africa, places like that. I'd like to go spend some time with some real Aborigine tribes that are like still out there, you know, untainted by modern culture and shit.
Yeah, that would be awesome if it could be done in a subtle way. I'd be worrying about them murdering you, you know?
Yeah.
Like, whoa, we got a white devil here, what the fuck? They don't, you know.
Definitely would have to be careful.
Yeah.
About where you go and study up on what kind of tribes are out there.
Yeah.
'Cause, I mean, I'm sure that there are some where you would potentially encounter violence, but there's also some that are probably very welcoming.
Yeah. Yeah. Just depends.
I'd like to go to Hawaii again. I went there once when I was like 14.
Yeah. I've never been to Hawaii, actually. It always seemed kind of cool. I always, in my mind, though, I think I'd rather go, it's probably a lot more money, but I'd rather go to, like, authentic, like, South Pacific island, like down in Polynesia, like go to Tahiti or Fiji or Bora Bora, or even maybe a smaller island than that, like where it's real, like you're really out there, like in the middle of the ocean, and like you're like that's like a true fucking island experience. I think like there's like so many miles and miles of like this like really shallow sea where it's like look like on the pictures I've seen where it's just like crisp blue, and it's like they have all these huts that are like standing in the water, like these resorts and stuff, because there's so much like shallow sea there that it extends so far out into the ocean. I think that'd be just like totally like leaving civilization and saying like fuck you to the man, and just like I'm gonna go there and just like bring a guitar and just like trip.
Yeah, and it seems like it would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reminds me of The Beach with Leo DiCaprio. That movie.
Yeah, that's a good movie.
One of my favorite movies, and it kind of made me want to, like, inspired me to maybe do that someday.
Yeah.
And I'm talking like going in search of some like mythical island that like nobody's been to, you know?
Yeah. You know, the place that I want to go that I've never been, though, place I want to go more than anywhere else probably, is England. For many reasons. For one, I really like kind of a history nerd, and I like the history in England just really intrigues me. And they're like all the like the literature that's come from England, just all the culture. I mean, and it just extends back through like medieval times. Like that's all really interesting to me, kind of like the way that modern Western society kind of developed in medieval England, and then all through the time through Shakespeare and the Elizabethan era, and then like the Victorian era, and like all the other like Dickens and all the literature, and then like up through like the 60s and 70s with like what I consider to be like the birth of true rock and roll, with like the Beatles and Led Zeppelin and the Who and all those bands. Like I just think that like England has so much like awesome culture that like I simply must go there, and I plan on going there soon.
Yeah, the culture alone is very rich. I'd like to check out some of the old castles.
Absolutely.
In like England and Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe hit up Ireland or something.
Yeah, Wales if there's time. Yeah, it's. I think it's, you know, in a lot of ways it probably resembles the United States, you know. But then, you know, you take a 5-minute drive on, you know, go through some like cobblestone street, you know, and end up at a castle like from you know, medieval days. Like how awesome is that? Like, just like
it would be so tight.
Dude, I know. Like I was saying, just like the history they have and the culture, like I really want to go study for like a semester at one of their prestigious universities there. I think they have some of the best universities in the world, and they're kind of like they've been around for hundreds of years, and you know they have among their alumni are some of the like greatest minds and thinkers in, you know, Western history.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to at least like visit Oxford and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be cool to like maybe spend a semester over there and take some classes.
Yeah, Oxfordshire, like in particular, that's like kind of the Midlands. That's where I really want to go. I think you have like the Cambridge, yeah. I think that's close by too to Oxford. Just that like educational, like learning atmosphere. Like the really intellectual people are over there. Plus you have like the castles and all that like history we were talking about, and probably a lot of awesome pubs. I like European beer. I like dark European beer. I think like I don't really like the club scene or anything like that that's popular over here. I think the pub thing over there, I think that's probably exactly what I'm looking at or looking for.
Yeah. I don't know, it might be interesting to check out some of the club scene over there. I mean, I'm not really into it here or anything, but
I bet you the club scene isn't much different there than it is here.
yeah.
I think it's the same thing.
Might be cool to like go to a rave over there or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or here. Just anywhere. Raves are cool.
From what you've heard, not like you've been there.
No.
Because we haven't done drugs, but does sound cool.
Never did a drug in my life. And I'm the greatest rock and roll musician ever. Who said it?
Who said it?
Ted Bundy.
Ted Bundy said that?
Ted Nugent.
Ted Nugent. But there's not much difference, really.
I misspoke.
Ted Bundy. I'd almost appreciate that quote better if it came from Bundy, because obviously he's fucking nuts. Nugent actually has maybe some sanity. Well, I don't know. But he's definitely not the greatest rock and roll musician ever.
No, yeah.
He's not in the top 100.
That's the main
He's not in the top 200.
Quote. First off, I'm pretty sure he's probably done a drug in his life. And secondly, he's not even close to the greatest guitarist or greatest rock musician in my book.
Yeah, in what way? Singer? Guitarist? Songwriter? No, Ted.
The answer is none
No,
of them.
none of those. Not even close, buddy.
I mean, he's good. I like some of his stuff.
Yeah.
He has one song I really like. The name is evading me right now.
Stranglehold.
I think that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Cat Scratch Fever, I'm not really a big fan of.
when I was younger, I really liked some of his stuff, but I don't know. I think I'm past it now. He's a douche. How do we get to Ted Nugent?
He's no Pete Frampton.
Fuck no, dude. Pete Frampton's twice.
Pete Frampton isn't even
yeah,
that
Pete
great.
Frampton's not that. I was gonna say Pete Frampton's twice the musician Ted Nugent is, but he's.
He only had like that one good album, really. When I saw
Frampton
him live,
Comes
though,
Alive.
and he played, when he played Black Hole Sun, like that, seriously gave him some points in my book.
Soundgarden. Now there is a band that has a legitimate claim to being like one of the greatest rock musicians of all time. They're up there. We didn't. When we were talking about the Pacific Northwest, we failed to talk about our culture, didn't we?
Yeah, I
We just
suppose
talked
so.
about the region. We didn't really talk about the culture.
Yeah. I mean, you got like, going way back, you got like Hendrix, you got Hart. Bruce Lee lived in Seattle for a while.
I think primarily, to have been in the Pacific Northwest during the 90s, when we grew up,
Yeah.
it was a magical time. I don't think ever has a decade and a region kind of coalesced into kind of an inseparable cultural event like Washington State in the 1990s did. And, like, I cringe to use the word grunge.
Yeah.
None of the bands in Seattle called themselves grunge. That was like a corporate label that they
it was
wanted.
like a marketing term.
Yeah, it was a marketing tool. But Nirvana,
Grunge movement.
Nirvana, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains.
Pearl Jam, Mother Love Bone.
Pearl Jam's my favorite, personally.
And I mean, like, STP was from California, but I mean, they were kind of on that wave.
Yeah, well,
There were a lot of copycats.
yeah, I don't know. But the Pacific Northwest, all that music, like sprung from the Pacific Northwest. There was something in the again, like how we were saying, it's kind of an outpost up here. Something in the culture up here that inspired all that music. And it really does. There's like an indefinable quality when I listen to those bands that like that sounds like home.
Yeah.
You know, and I can't put my finger on it, but it's just like that sounds like home. Like there's something about it.
Yeah, something about like some of the songs that just like perfectly capture or like encapsulate the Pacific Northwest vibe. One of the ones that stands out in my mind as like one of those songs that whenever I hear it, I'm just like, yeah, this just sounds like so PNW.
Yeah.
Wood by Alice in Chains. It
Yeah.
just like gives me
probably the dark side of up here.
Yeah.
There's a real,
it's like real eerie quality to it, but it just reminds me of home.
That's how, probably, all those bands really do. Chains and Pearl Jam, probably the most for me. Pearl Jam's music, their early music, like, that's just, to me, that's so, like, it just has this, like, ethereal, like, echoing quality that I'd liken to a waterfall.
Yeah.
That just washes over you and rejuvenates you. It's like, it's so, like, it reminds me of like a Pacific Northwest forest, man. Just like fucking, just like clean breath of fresh air. Like that's how I describe Pearl Jam's music.
Yeah.
They're fucking ballers.
Soundgarden too. It's just interesting how they all like kind of encapsulated the vibe of this area, but in like different ways. Like they all kind of had their own unique sounds, but it was all kind of the same too in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Like they were all categorized as grunge and easily kind of put into this subcategory and labeled, but they still all like held their own and had their own like differences, but from band to band.
Yeah, but they were all great friends,
Yeah.
Like that's something that's rare, I think.
Well, look at Temple of the Dog and the stuff that like Chris Cornell and Eddie Vedder collaborated on. It was only like a couple songs on that album, but that was awesome.
Yeah, that's probably
Hunger Strike.
I think that's probably my favorite song of all time.
And then you got the stuff that Alice in Chains did on the Sap EP, when like for a couple songs on there they had Nancy Wilson
from Heart
singing with them.
Yeah.
They had Mark Arm from Mudhoney.
Yeah.
And Chris Cornell on Right Turn. They were calling themselves like Alice Mudgarden for a little while there.
Dude, yeah, I remember that. Or I remember reading about it. Or even about, how about like Mad Season, It was Lane's band with Mike McCready from Pearl Jam. Like that band was like a symbiosis. If Temple of the Dog was a symbiosis of Pearl Jam and Soundgarden, Mad Season was the symbiosis of Alice in Chains and Pearl Jam.
Yeah. I love River of Deceit, one of my all-time favorite songs. That's like something about like a lot of this music that we're talking about from up here too. Like there's a interesting quality that kind of suggests this area to us, and there's also the quality of the music. A lot of the songs by these bands invoke some kind of feeling in me, which is kind of what I want when I listen to music.
Yeah, there's not, like I'll put those bands up against any other band in the world, like I think technically, like lyrics wise, like vocally, just in all aspects, but I think the fact that like we have three of the like there's not another region in the world that I can think of, unless you want to count like England as an entire country, which isn't really fair. There's not a like specific region or city that has ever produced like such quality and quantity that Seattle and Washington State has.
Yeah, in such a short time.
Yeah.
But there is kind of that movement of early rock and roll that we talked about a little bit earlier with the Beatles and the Who and Led Zeppelin. the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were really good friends in the early years, collaborating and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, this is probably the only other time that I can see that might be able to go toe-to-toe with the Seattle music scene.
But again,
in the 90s.
I would point out that the Beatles were from Liverpool and the Stones were from London. And those are, you know, England's a lot smaller than the United States, you know, so I mean, it's about the size of a state. But I think those are two totally different, like, cultural regions, you know. So even that, like,
well, and you can see it in their music, like, you know, they're totally apples to oranges, but you know, there were a lot of collaborations. The Stones actually wrote some songs for the Beatles early on, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. Like, you can get into Led Zeppelin and how they were really good friends with The Who and other bands of the time, or like, you know, The Who, Jimi Hendrix jamming out early on, like, you know, it's not just the Stones and the Beatles, like a lot of people would say. There's a lot of tie-ins. You got Clapton tying in with Led Zeppelin from the Yardbirds.
Yeah, and the Beatles. Him and George Harrison were best friends. Harrison actually, you heard the story about how Harrison wrote Here Comes the Sun, which is probably my favorite Beatles song?
Yeah, I think I remember you telling me at one time, but I can't, like, recall.
I just thought it was a fucking cool story. Like, I guess Harrison was supposed to go have some, like, corporate business meeting about the Beatles label. And, you know, probably just some typical bullshit professional business meeting, you know, that an artist, a person of Harrison's depth, you know, didn't enjoy that type of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess one day when he was supposed to have this meeting, he was kind of just not feeling it, decided to say, fuck it, I'm not going to that meeting, ditched out on it, went over to Eric Clapton's house, went into Clapton's backyard, sat down with the guitar, and wrote Here Comes the Sun. I just thought that was kind of just a cool story.
Yeah, that is pretty awesome.
But yeah, like, definitely, I think England back in those times is the only thing you can compare to the Pacific Northwest, like, musically and culturally.
And I would tend to agree that the movement of, like, the Seattle area in the early 90s is probably unparalleled.
Yeah.
But
it's still crazy the, like, lack of recognition that this part of the country gets, though, isn't it? It's funny. When someone says Washington, they mean Washington State. They don't mean D.C.
Yeah, I hate that, like, when I read that in certain articles, and you know it's referring to D.C., but they just leave that part out.
Yeah.
And it gets confusing, too. Like, I have people talking about Washington sometimes in conversation, and not talking about Washington State, talking about Washington, D.C., and I get all confused. It's just confusing. Why not just call Washington, D.C., Washington, D.C.?
Or they shouldn't even call it. Why does it even... It's the city itself is its own district. It's the District of Columbia. Why does it need two names? Drop the Washington. It's D.C. It's the District of Columbia.
Yeah.
Washington is Washington State. And I don't care that Washington, D.C. was founded first. That's still a stupid argument because it had two names from the get-go. So screw that. West Coast is the best coast. Not to alienate any East Coast listeners, like we fucking have them.
Yeah, I'm not sure that we need to worry about that, but I tend to agree anyway.
And again, I've never been there, but I'm just assuming. It's a confident assumption.
Well, assuming tends to make an ass out of you and me.
I haven't heard that since high school. One of our teachers used to drop that line, didn't he?
Who was it?
I don't want to say it on here.
Oh, I think I know who you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of places I want to go. Maybe a lot of other places I'd end up wanting to live. permanently, but I would never trade my upbringing in the Pacific Northwest, because I think that we have such a unique combination of culture and geography here that it's probably one of the coolest regions on the planet, if not the best, hands down.
Yeah, and like you said, like I could see myself kind of settling down in other areas permanently.
Yeah.
But there's also a part of me that could also see myself settling down permanently somewhere close to here.
Yeah.
I guess I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But this place definitely has its merits.
Absolutely.
Olympia is an awesome town.
Olympia.
Lacey.
Olympia is my favorite city that I've yet been to. Which isn't saying much, because again, I haven't traveled very much, but Olympia is like a smaller, more laid-back version of Seattle.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. I really love Olympia.
And it's close enough that if you needed to get up to Seattle for some business or whatever, it's not that overbearing of a drive. And it's also close enough to like the coast and the wilderness and stuff where you can get away at the drop of a hat if you need to.
Yeah, you're an hour and a half from the beach. You're an hour and a half from Seattle.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like
it's
the
perfect location.
Happy medium.
Perfect location to, I mean, it's a short drive to SeaTac, really, from Olympia. And I mean, from SeaTac, you can go, it's an international airport, you can go anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
It's a good place. Actually, one example I just thought of here, I want to backtrack just for a second. We were talking about music scenes that rival that of the Pacific Northwest. Probably the closest one would be Manchester, England, which is ironically the northwest of England. They had some really good bands that are, I think, pretty close to being on par with all the Seattle bands. Oasis, The Verve, Stone Roses, and the Smiths a little bit earlier, if you want to count them too. Oasis, The Verve, and the Stone Roses are some of my favorite bands too, and they're like pretty close up there with me for like Pearl Jam and Chains.
Yeah.
If not even ahead of them, maybe. I don't know. Depends on what day you ask me.
Yeah.
You know. So I just wanted to backtrack and just throw that out there. Like I didn't want to forget Manchester.
Yeah, and I agree. There's like a lot of great Oasis songs and the Verve songs.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about like the 90s music movement in Seattle that we were talking about and like these bands is that they can all be played together and really blend together nicely.
Yeah, on like a playlist or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that goes for those Manchester bands too. Like they're all friends. Their music was pretty similar. And Noel Gallagher is hands down one of the greatest songwriters of all time.
Yeah.
No one pumps out as much quality at the quantity that Noel does. I will say that for him. But anyway, is there anything else you'd want to talk about?
Well, one thing I'm kind of excited about, sticking with the theme of Pacific Northwest, Washington State in particular.
Yeah.
Seattle, getting more particular. Pretty excited about the Seahawks next year.
Yeah.
They look pretty formidable.
Mm-hmm.
They look like a scary team for a lot of the league.
They do, don't they?
An intimidating team.
Intimidating team from up here in the Pac Nor. Yeah, I've been a Seahawks fan since I was born. You know, my dad kind of instilled that in me when I was real little. And I don't remember a season or like anticipation for a season like this one has. There hasn't been any hype like this ever. Even the year that we went to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
There was no hype like this. Like no one really saw that coming. This year,
they never saw that coming.
This year, I'm going to go on record and I'm going to predict that this is the year that We get a championship, Lombardi Trophy in Seattle.
Well, if they get home field advantage, that's it. End of story. Goodbye. They are at least getting to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, if they get home field advantage, they, hands down, will get to the Super Bowl. There's no question about that. Do we get home field advantage, or do the Seahawks get home field advantage? I think they do. They have a rigorous schedule, but I think that 42-13 blowout of the Niners at the end of the season last year, I think that was indicative of things to come.
Yeah.
And I think that I think they will get home field advantage. And from there, it's who's the AFC going to put up that's going to pose a real tangible challenge. I don't really see it.
AFC's wide open, I think.
I think the Hawks' biggest challenges are like the Niners and Packers.
Yeah.
Maybe the Falcons.
Teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
I think the AFC is definitely in a weak year. I think it's going to be the Broncos making a deep playoff push.
Possibly Houston.
Yeah, and I think there could be a team that surprises people, kind of comes out of nowhere. There's also the chance for a wild card to just kind of a dark horse, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But back to the Seahawks, man. Like, just looking at all the youth they have at every position and the speed,
talent, depth that they have.
We got the Legion of Boom. Sherman, Browner, Chancellor, Thomas. Added Winfield to the mix.
Oh, jeez, yeah. Forgot about Winfield.
Our nickel defense is going to be the best in the league.
Maybe the best ever.
Wagner,
Maybe the best ever.
Linebacker.
Wagner, yeah. KJ Wright's coming along pretty good.
Bruce Irvin, when he comes back from his suspension, he's playing linebacker now.
Yeah.
And then they got freak D-line.
Yeah, we picked up Cliff Averill and Michael Bennett.
I think the front seven gets overlooked a lot.
Yeah, just because of the Legion of Boom. So
Legion of Boom is hands down the best in the league, so they get all the
dude. I think
coverage.
I think it's really. I think on paper, we'll see how it plays out. But I'm saying on paper, from my vantage point, and I don't take sports too fucking seriously and shit, you know. So I'm not some like ESPN like fanboy or something. But but I will say, to my eyes, the Seahawks have the best defense and offense in the league.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, their offense was already pretty explosive just last year with Russell Wilson and how he surprised.
Add Percy Harvin.
Lynch. Yeah, add
Percy Harvin. Marshawn's new backup, that Kristen Michael guy who's supposed to be a freak, might be one of the best backs in the league. And Russell Wilson's going to be, they're not going to be holding him back for the first half of the season.
Well, and he's
like
got a full off
year.
season under his belt.
Yeah,
you know,
so
last
he's
year,
better.
his rookie year, they had the lockout and all that shit, so he didn't even get like a full
Yeah.
off season.
And then not only Zach Miller, who's I think he's supposed to be the highest paid tight end in the league this year, but that Luke Wilson guy, who's behind him. Like, imagine like running a couple like double tight end sets with Percy Harvin in there somehow. It's fucking scary. It's so dynamic.
It really is. The only kind of question mark is the offensive line. We'll see how that shapes up. I mean, they were pretty decent next year, but they could stand to make some improvement.
Yeah.
At on the right side of the line specifically.
I don't like that Giacomini motherfucker. He's an asshole. He always makes stupid penalties. Just like
way too many penalties.
He's just like an asshole to people.
Seems like a poor sport.
He is. He's a poor sport. I think they should cut him. That's my only problem with the entire Hawks squad.
Well, one person I think a lot of people have forgotten about, James Carpenter.
Yeah.
We get him back, and he's either going to play, I think he's probably going to play left guard. But, we've got...
Unger's a fucking hell of a center.
Yeah, he's awesome. And if Carpenter plays guard, then we have... McQueeson I kind of view as a little weak. So we have John Moffitt and J.R. Sweezy competing for the right guard spot.
And they're, they're decent.
Yeah, I think the weak link is Giacomini.
Fuck him. I don't like him.
Maybe he kind of reins it in this year, I would hope.
Yeah, but besides the dude, even the offensive line, which is the question mark, it's still pretty stacked.
Okung is
Okung and Unger, man. That's a lot more than a lot of teams can say.
Yeah.
Like, they have 2 fucking Pro Bowler quality players on the offensive line.
Unger was all pro last year.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, dude.
Deserving.
I think he was ranked one of the top 100 players in the league, too.
He was like 96 on the list or something. But yeah, I would definitely agree with that claim. Defense, I think it's not even a question.
Yeah.
Maybe the Niners could be brought up as an argument, but I think the Seahawks D is just going to be unparalleled this next year.
We'll see how that plays out week 2.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a fucking blowout.
I think so too. They're going to come into Quest and beat us.
38-17 probably. 38-20, something like that.
I think Kaepernick is going to underwhelm this year.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a loser.
But yeah, I mean, like, I could see some people taking issue with the claim of the Seahawks having the number 1 offense. I mean, just off the top of my head, there's the Falcons.
Yeah,
They
there's
added
the
Steven
Falcons, the
Jackson.
Saints always are looming. Even Denver maybe with Peyton Manning.
Yeah. The Packers.
Yeah, you can't overlook Green Bay. But, you know,
I think Russ Wilson is just a baller, plain and simple. A lot of people are looking for him to choke this year. But I think with his work ethic, there's no way that it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
He's unparalleled for work ethic.
Yep, I think this is the year. This is the year for the Hawks. Pacific Northwest. Dominating. Culturally. Geographically. And in football.
So let's just conveniently not talk about the Mariners right now. Although they are on a 7-win streak.
Hey. Yeah, knock on wood. Mariners have some of the best history in baseball, though. And I think Ken Griffey Jr. was the best natural baseball player of all time. Natural, you know. He was injured. Who knows what could have been.
Yeah.
I'm not saying hands down he's the best player of all time, stats-wise, but
He was just a marvel to watch.
yeah, if we're talking about, like, prime for prime, best baseball player of all time, I'm going Ken Griffey Jr. every time.
You ever play Ken Griffey's Slugger?
Mm-mm. No, but I had his shoes.
He had like a home run derby game on N64. It's pretty awesome. The man had his own video game.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk about, or should we wrap this light episode up? It's been a light podcast for us. Usually we get into a lot deeper and probably more relevant topics. But today we just kind of felt like keeping it light, talking about kind of just our surrounding area, that type of thing.
Yeah, I think we could just end it on a positive note. It's not really any burning desires I have or anything to bring up.
Yeah, me neither.
We thank you for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. And we hope you'll join us again soon.
Bye!